Hey guys. All right, this is Among the Imposters. We're on chapter 21. Luke could hear someone crashing through the woods behind him, but he didn't look back. He'd run into the darkest part of the woods, and it took all his concentration to dodge the tree limbs that seemed to reach down out of nowhere. In fact, if Luke really wanted to terrify himself, he could think of those tree limbs as witches' arms, ghouls, and fingers. He wasn't used to running through the woods at night. Back home, when he'd gone outside after dark, it had mostly been for catching lightning bugs in the backyard, playing moonlight kickball with his brothers, innocent fun. He'd been so young back then, back home. He forced himself to run faster, but whoever was behind him seemed to be catching up. Luke zigzagged because he'd read once that was how rabbits escaped their predators. Then he slammed into a tree. He screamed in pain and reeled backwards. A dark shape pounced. Before he knew it, Luke was pinned to the ground. Eek! Luke remembered another time he'd been tackled. The first time he'd crept into Jen's house, he made a noise, and the next thing he knew, she had him face down in the carpet, and they'd become friends. This wasn't Jen. "What do you think you're doing?" A voice hissed in his ear. "Jackal boys. You go back now during indoctrination and they'll catch you. They'll know, and then they'll come looking for the rest of us." Indoctrination? Luke guessed that Jackal Boy meant the evening lecture. The name made sense. The lecture was always about how wonderful the government was. But Luke hadn't even thought about what he was running toward. He was just running away. "Who will catch me?" he asked. "The only ones who watch are the hall monitors, and they all report to you, right?" "You got it," Jackal Boy said. He sounded pleased. "I worked hard setting up that system. The teachers didn't like hall duty anyway, and now, well, you can get away with it anything, can't you?" Luke asked. "Unless I tell." He didn't know what possessed him to make that threat. Maybe it was just habit. After 12 years of being the youngest brother, he knew the power of tattling. And he knew how easily it could backfire. "Make you a deal," Luke said quickly. "Let me up and I won't go back now. Answer some questions for me and I won't tell. I'll keep your secrets." Jackal Boy seemed to be considering. Finally he said, "Okay." Luke scrambled up and pulled away. He rubbed the side of his face. He wasn't sure if it was sore from hitting the tree or from being slammed against the ground. His hand came and went. "I'm bleeding," he said accusingly. "You'll have to hide it," Jackal Boy said. "Are you good at hiding?" Luke shrugged away the question. He knew Jackal Boy was really asking something else, but Luke wasn't ready to answer. "What's your name anyway?" Luke said. "Which one?" Jackal Boy asked. "If you look at the school records, I'm Scott Renault. Out here, I'm Jason." "One of those names is fake," Luke said. Somewhere in the woods an owl hooted. Luke waited. Finally, Jackal Boy answered softly, "Yes." "Your friends all have fake names too," Luke said. "Yes." No hesitation. "You're all third children who have come out of hiding with fake ID cards?" Luke said. "Ex-nays," Jackal Boy said. "Is that what that means?" Luke said. "You didn't know?" Jackal Boy asked. "Where have you been all your life?" Luke decided not to answer that question either. "And phone rolls," he started. "Are any third children hiding or not?" "Why does everybody at school call each other those names?" Luke asked. "Is everybody here an ex-nay?" In the dark, Luke could barely see Jackal Boy shaking his head. "Haven't kids called each other ex-nays and phone rolls at other schools you've been to? All the other places you've ever lived? Some say in the beginning the government paid for people to use phone roll or ex-nay as swear words on TV and stuff. Then those words were forbidden in public broadcasts, which just meant that people used them more in private. They wanted to make sure that everyone thought of third children as terrible." Luke wondered why Jen had never told him about that. "Well, maybe I've never been to any other schools," Luke said cautiously. He said maybe. He still could deny everything if he wanted. Jackal Boy laughed open-mouthed. His teeth glinted in the moonlight. "Why don't you just come out and admit it?" he asked. "You're an ex-nay too, I know it." Luke dodged the question. "Why do you harass me every night?" he asked, "when everybody else ignores me?" "What's the procedure we develop for dealing with new boys?" Jackal said. and new girls over at Harlow School for Girls. We've discovered it's hard for shadow children when they first come out of hiding. They're overwhelmed. They're traumatized. Think about it. They've spent their whole lives thinking it's death to be seen, and suddenly they're expected to interact with others all day long, to sit through classes with dozens of other kids, behave normally. They freak out. Did you? Luke asked, trying to picture Jackal Boy as the new kid, just come out of hiding, scared of everything. His imagination failed him. Me? Jackal Boy sounded surprised. Sure, it was tough. The problem was, lots of ex-nays got so panicked they do something really dumb. Stand up and chant their real name. They start screaming, don't look at me, don't look at me. You know, they totally lose it. Now, Hendrix has a lot of disturbed kids anyway. It does? Luke asked. Haven't you noticed? Jackal Boy sounded amazed. The autistic kids, the ones who rock and won't look you in the eye, the phobic kids who've all got sorts of troubled cases in there. Ever meet Raleigh Sturgeon? There's a psycho for you. So ex-nays can get away with some pretty wacky behavior at Hendrix. But the population police still got in a few good raids. That's why a lot of us ex-nays got together and planned it all out. Every time a new kid arrives, we go into emergency mode until we can tell if he's an ex-nay or not. We watch, we protect. Luke remembered the hands pushing him down into the chair that first day in his first class, but we do it all in secret. We give the ex-nay plenty of breathing room. We pick just one person to approach him to be a friend. Luke thought about having to chant, I'm a fun roll, 50 times, of having to do push-ups while everybody else laughed, of having to obey every single one of Jackal's Boy's sarcastic comments. I thought friends were supposed to be nice to you, Luke said bitterly. Maybe that's a word I don't understand either. Being too nice to an ex-nay from the start only causes trouble, Jackal Boy said. They break down. They get weepy. They're so happy to find a sympathetic ear that they tell everything, no matter who else can hear them. No, ex-nays need the kind of friend who can toughen them up, like I did for you. Was that what was happening? Luke felt overwhelmed and confused as he had his first day at Hendrix. Listening to Jackal Boy was like it used to be listening to Jen. They were both so sure of themselves. It was hard for Luke to figure out what he thought on his own. How can you tell if a new kid is an ex-nay or not? Luke asked, stalling. We give them a test, Jackal Boy said. When they're ready, we leave the door open, and we make sure they see it. We stare them right in the eye. We know exactly how an ex-nay would respond, compare with a typical agoraphobe or a typical autistic kid. Huh, you've got everybody figured out, huh? Luke said. Sure, Jackal Boy asked. Can't you tell? Luke couldn't answer that question. He was feeling panicky again. In a minute, he was going to have to make a decision. With Jen, it had been easy. He'd trusted her right away. But he was older now, more suspicious. He knew that she had been betrayed. And he could be too. I think we're going to stop here. We had learned a lot of information. Oh my gosh. We learned, how about you tell me what you learned? Okay, I'll continue chapter, what are we on? Chapter 21 tomorrow. Bye, guys.